So, welcome to the first. Me and Nick just discussed this. We're going to do it weekly. It's Palantalk. So we're going to talk about the guys that more of us are going to be talking about, hopefully after this discussion. But the Nazi tech bro, fascist elite, Yarvin loving suckers that are really potentially pulling the strings, and
Uh,
it'll be
Potentially
good.
might be too soft of a word there.
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely. You're totally correct. Without all certainty, um, pulling the strings. And Melissa, always feel free to share information. I'm sure the same goes for Nick as well. I am not able to respond to every message I get, but I do look at the links, I do look at the messages, and I do take them into account when I'm writing. So feel free to always shoot me a link as well.
So, and I just
So
dropped a link to on an article that I wrote a while ago about Palantir. It's called The Insider Threat. Palantir is here. I have a couple around them. They're not too deep dive into Palantir, but they are some of the stuff going on. So this is good. I'm
yeah.
glad we're doing this.
Yeah, and I got some talking points I kind of put together to kind of help guide the conversation. Because maybe for some people here, maybe not all the folks, considering our viewing is generally pretty tuned in, more so than other folks. But just to kind of build on everything, and Nick, I know you have a background in data engineering, data analytics, data engineering, building the software. So I kind of wanted to throw this ball to you off the bat, but what does Palantir do? Like, who are they? What is the company built to do on paper? What do they say
Mhm.
they do, and what are their capabilities?
Yeah. So great question. Welcome. Hey, y'all. I'm Nick. If you don't know me, I do the Sick of This Shit pod, and Sick of This show. Um, I talk a lot about civics, but I'm a veteran. I'm an Army vet. I'm a prior software engineer at the moment. If anyone wants a senior DevOps platform engineer, hit me up. I'm always looking for gigs. I'll just throw myself out there like that. But I got
Shameless
to work.
plug, bro.
Hell yeah. So I got to actually work in two fields that are directly linked to Palantir. So give you a little bit of primer on who Palantir is. And that was one of the reasons I dropped the article link in the chat is so Palantir is a um, they label themselves in a couple ways. They are a data analytics company, but their main thing is defense contracting. They're a defense contracting company that has, for the last decade or more, longer at this point, been a primary source of creating data analytics software that is incredibly good at identifying people and targeting them and putting a single target on a single person by creating a network of information in a database that aggregates all of minute little pieces of information called metadata, what we all think of as useless junk in, say, your URL browser or it's timestamps, it's when you are at a location, it's your IP address, what location you're at, where you're paying from, all sorts of different things. Palantir brings this all together and they create a database which allows them to track people. They are the military's apparatus that allows our army and our military in general to stay more lethal and ahead of every other force. On top of that, they are now our new contractors for DHS to do the same thing internally. So they, for a very, very long time, have been an external company only faced towards external threats. Very, very rarely are they used internally. However, now they're our new best friend. So, does that give a decent little primer on Palantir to get us into this discussion? Um,
I think you nailed it, Nick. I really do. And just to kind of add, my understanding of Palantir and all of these things came from the way that I find all my information in it's asking questions, right? At the Firebrand
Hmm.
Project, you guys know what we do here. It's all strictly Socratic, right? We see something and we ask those tangential questions. And, looking backwards, one of the things that directions I kind of want to steer us today, because there's a couple, like you said, military integration is a very big part of Palantir. But I really I'm gonna take us to Gaza a bit, because if you look at Gaza, it's a really, really good example of Palantir in action and the directions that we have seen, and really good examples of that precision. Um, and I want us to try and give you guys real, tangible examples of how these things are done, because in theory it's one thing to hear about it, but what we really need to understand is the actual real implementation that already exists, that we can see, and that is more, I think, uh valuable to a lot of folks, to be able to describe Palantir, but then not to say, oh, they're a scary company that's watching you. No, this is what they're already doing, right? And to your point, they're now domestically contracted by ICE, and they're using this
So
platform to aggregate data.
I'll give you the platform that they have built for this. It's called Project Gotham.
Yes,
As
I was gonna say,
scary
is it
as you
Gotham? Yep, yep, yep.
fucking, yeah, as scary as you want to fucking call it, they called it Project Gotham. They called it that for a reason, because it was used for police forces. They have already tested it out in multiple countries. In fact, I think it was uh, Great Britain that did it, and they got called out for it because of the built-in um, racial biases. So Palantir, I just went back to their website. The first thing that they brand themselves as now is an AI company.
Yes, I saw that.
Let that sink in. Let
Yep,
that sink in. They don't brand themselves as the very first thing as a defense contracting company anymore. They're an AI company, which means they have all the data they need.
correct.
They're just waiting to use it, because their next big step is AI integration into the military. They're already doing it. Um,
Yeah, those tech executives, right? You mentioned this last time we talked, but
yes,
lieutenant colonels sworn into the army from all of these
not
AI
sworn in,
are
commissioned.
commissioned.
Commissioned as officers into the army with no training, no prior experience, and are leading troops as part of the executive innovation directive or whatever, detachment 201. It sounds pretty scary. Like they made it sound as shitty as possible, because it is. Like it was a good idea, kind of, when Biden was there, and people who had more of a soul than what these people do were in charge.
Emphasis on more of a soul here as
Yeah,
well,
but
not on a whole soul, but more of a soul.
yeah, because bringing it back to Gaza, if you don't think Israel uses Palantir's technology, they do. Like
Oh,
Palantir sells their tech to other countries. They're a military industrial complex key figure. Their whole point, the guy who they just put in to the military wrote a manifesto about it. Like we can go into that dude. Like the guy that they put into the unit. Let me get up his name, because I ran
yeah.
into
While
this
you do
shit
that, I
that way.
want to kind
Yeah,
of
go back.
hop down into my
Mm-hmm.
talking points here. But, we mentioned this, but my second talking point here is I want to talk about our entanglement and just how already wildly integrated we are. And you mentioned that Biden was already talking to Palantir. That goes back beyond Biden. They've been working with Palantir for a long time, and the service they provide, especially when it first came out, was undoubtedly considered very valuable.
And still
Especially
is.
when yes, especially when we're targeting the war on terror, right? They're marketing a product that is very appealing, right? We're trying to target these individual terrorist leaders. And when you're offering software and the ability to aggregate all that data, that CCTV footage, these guys walking around in these towns in the Middle East, it's so important that you're able to grab that facial picture. And most of the time, those aren't guys with cameras, right? That was kind of a lot of it was originally that. But what Palantir did is it removed the need for the guys with cameras on the street following these people. It allowed them to basically take people out of harm's way and
Mhm.
use technology to do the same thing. Um, but
It
then
did good.
it
It
did
did
good,
good. So let's give Palantir credit for some things. I will say this, and I'm not, and again, it's just like the argument of there's good and bad that everybody does. They accidentally did some good. Like they got service members not killed. They kept service members alive. Like I love that because that kept me and my brethren and my sisters and the others and everybody else who were there alive.
right?
It's always good until it gets turned inward. Like that is the problem. Like Palantir, the issue with this isn't that Palantir was altruistic in any ways. This was always what they wanted. They always wanted to turn it inward. That was the whole point because they live in this philosophy of nihilism and ultra like I don't give a shit about anybody except for me. So like they're a decent company, but they did some really shitty things because of it. Like they've taken all of our data and aggregated it now, and now they're going to turn it inward.
Yeah, and I want to add to your point that you said it saved people's lives, but just so easily. And this is where I always say we need to understand ourselves to understand the evil in the world, right? Because every great idea is ruined by humans, right? We have this tendency, as our tendency is to be great. We have a ability to be great and to be moral and to make the right decisions, but we also tend towards not being great. That's human nature, right? You can go all the way back on those people contemplating on what it is to be human.
Yep.
Most of these people, right? I tend to subscribe to the notion that man tends to be self-serving, it tends to be evil, but you can make the choice to be a better person, especially if you're surrounded by people who also subscribe to that. But
Yes.
it saved lives. But then guess what Palantir's Gotham also did? When Israel didn't want aid, I was thinking about this. When World Kitchen, they got sniped, right? They got sniped, that whole convoy driving. They told them where they were, and they said, oh, it was a miss. But they used laser guided missiles and they hit these people like that, right? You look
Mhm.
back in hindsight, that is absolutely that kind of Palantir software. And that was used to kill good people because
Yes.
it's a tool, right? So you give a man a sword, he can slay the dragon or he can kill the princess. It doesn't matter. The sword is not at fault, to your point, right?
Yeah.
Palantir itself is an entity, it's a weapon to be wielded. And it was used to save US soldiers, but it was also used to kill World Kitchen people who were just
Exactly.
driving to go give people food.
Yep. Or it was used to racially profile people in England or racially profile people in America because they have used this technology in America already in police forces. The Project Gotham has been used before. It is an AI driven technology to racially profile
Yeah,
and
and it's
inherently
predictive,
bias
right?
policing. It's predictive profiling. It's not predictive policing, it's predictive profiling because that's what they're doing. They're profiling people based off of a set of criteria that's built into an AI model that doesn't think, look, or talk like you and me because it's not a fucking person, it's a computer. What that does is it takes out any humanity. Like it just buckets you on these ideas of, oh, you're Hispanic, you live in this neighborhood, you make this amount of income, your neighbors with this person, which means, oh, you're a criminal. That's what it's
Right.
going to do. That is predictive profiling. That's what they do.
And
And
it's
that's, I'm going to say
interesting.
predictive profiling, not policing, because they do profiling. They are a
Correct.
profiling company. They use their data, they aggregate their data to profile people to identify targets to kill. That's what
And you
they
know
do.
what's interesting as you say that, right? It's predictive, and I want to go back and I want to talk about that just predictive, right? Because we do have to understand that as people. we are very predictable, right? We follow patterns. Now, I'm not going to support the idea of racial profiling. What I am going to say is that that cold computer is going to aggregate all of that data, and it's going to be able to actually predict what things are happening. Now, it's all good and well when we're talking about criminals, but now we have to again shift our focus to what the tool is being used for. Imagine you are attempting to oppress a population and enforce some sort of feudalistic or hierarchical system upon them. Now you have the ability to predictively target leaders based on pattern recognition to essentially make it so that the people are unable to either A, really rally, or B, you're able to target people who pose a resistance threat or in more importantly here an ideological threat. Now that's where I think
Hmm.
this is going to be going is they're going to be using this software to target ideology because what we have here on the
They
internet
already
has
are.
unintentionally, right? It's unintentionally or intentionally, we put out our
Oh,
ideas onto the internet. So you can now go, and me and Nick are an ideological threat, right? We pose an ideological threat to the narrative they're trying to sculpt here, right? So that's one of the things too is and now on top of that, they can say, okay, well, Shane and Nick are an ideological threat. Well, Palantir in this Gotham database, it can use CCTV footage. It can use your phone. It can use all these things. Well, now me and Nick, when we walk around, per se, I'm not saying we're that important or that cool, but just for the sake of this example,
we are
now
that
because
important.
I'm an ideal, because of we're an ideological threat, we could that AI could hypothetically be pinging us everywhere we go, every
Well,
traffic cam, every
let's take out
acquaintance.
the hypothetically like that. Let's not lie to people because it's not hypothetical. It's here. This type of
Right,
technology and this type of tool
right,
set is here and is being used. Like
right,
we have to remember
right.
it's in use. It's not a myth. This is the beginning of like every terrible sci-fi movie, like RoboCop
Yeah, it
or
is.
Elysium or oh, I don't know, any of the movies where we all die.
I think of
Terminator.
Elysium a lot when I think of where things are going.
Yeah.
The rich people, and I wrote a piece a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, I've only been around 5 months, so I want to say 2 months ago. It was called.
Your
It
time
was
is
called.
meaningless. I fucking get it.
I know.
Holy shit.
It was called Up in the Clouds, right? The billionaire class. And I need to. These people are different than us. They're inherently
Hmm.
different. They're like a different species because when there's this whole concept of nature versus nurture, right? And these people have never worked for anything. If they want food, they snap their fingers and someone brings them something, right? Ironically, the presidential Coke button is a good example of this. They don't get up to go to the fridge to get their own Coke. They've never worked. These people don't need to work because their capital, that interest makes them $1 million a day. When you live like that, when you are so wildly different, you do psychologically, they have put everyone beneath them. So when you give them a tool, they do view us as less than human, right? We are not equal to them, and they will
Hmm.
certainly go, they would certainly destroy the planet and all go up to a space station that resembles the Earth that they destroyed happily and left us all on. And
Like, think
that's really the truth. That's really,
Mars.
really the truth.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
want to go to Mars or something like that. They want to build something in space. Like, I'm all for going into space. Like, I love the idea of space. Like, space is cool. There's so
I
much
could
out
go
there
up
we can learn.
at the
I'd love
end.
to go.
I'm requesting a 10-minute tangent on space at the very end of
Okay.
this. So
Okay.
if you guys
That's
want to
fine.
stay at 11 o'clock from 11 to 11:10, me and Nick are going to go off on space because it is certainly one of my special interests, and I just want to talk to you about it. But let's continue here.
Hold on. Hold on. Before we even go on that tangent, just because you got me on it. There's a reason
Nice,
I have some of these Lego sets out. Like, I
nice.
fucking love this stuff. I have the Mars Perseverance rover um on my shelf too. It's so much fun. Anyway,
Yeah,
back to what
Legos
we're
are
talking
great.
about. Because these people want to go to space. They want to go to space to leave us behind. Like Elysium is a
Hmm.
great example of it because they literally abandoned Earth to the pores and said, yeah, y'all got this. You're good here dying in this wasteland. We'll just leave you, yeah, scraps and maybe rotting to death in a fucking radiation chamber and having some cool ass biosuit have to be attached to you so you can murder some people. Like, okay, cool. That's what they left us with. That's Palantir, the drones flying over, the robots in the streets. If all of these companies are not only is Palantir a defense contracting company, but they also work with other defense contracting companies. If you don't think they work in conjunction with groups like Boston Dynamics or GE or Boeing or Lockheed Martin or any of these other groups that make the weapons too, you're wrong. Like, if you don't think they work with drone groups or even with like Elon Musk, all of the AI stuff, all of this is going into mechs, into humanoid drones. And those humanoid drones are faster, more powerful, more deadly than we are.
Yeah.
On a war side, great, less humans die. On a real person side, that means we get policed in the street by those things and they become Terminators.
Yeah, it's
So
the
the
power
next step
dynamic.
is Skynet or some shit like that. Like that's
I
what's,
saw a concept earlier and I wanted to throw this your way.
yeah.
Um, Digital ID, right? So suppose you want to use the internet and
Hmm.
suddenly you have
Social
some
credit
form of
scores.
implementation, social credit scores, digital ID. Hey Shane, hey, hey Nick, you guys are flagged as a risk. Your digital ID is limited. You can only use X, you can only browse X data. If you want to do research, sucks. You can't do it. You're limited by your digital ID. Okay, well, I'm going to use a different browser. Well, sorry, actually, we're able to tag your device ID. And if we see you on the CCTV footage with an iPad, well, we're going to be able to go to, through all these footages, find the device ID on that on the network and turn it off because, it really is, we really are that sophisticated. And it really is um there is no actual, here's what I when I wrote about the executive order, I posted that and I encourage you guys to go read it. It's an I titled an urgent warning, is the Epstein file distracting us from dystopia? And the idea itself being that, while all of this is going on, them rolling this stuff out, them rolling back these limitations, that very intent is there, and we're seeing the shift, right, especially with
Hmm.
Epstein, the just disenfranchisement with the entire establishment from even the original base. So if there's going to be a need and a time to implement this kind of software, it is now, especially when we're starting to see this trend of total, I mean, they're polling, all of them are polling horribly, like people just hate them, right? Like we're
Yeah.
there, like everyone hates them. I saw a picture today of these Nazis in, I think, Connecticut, and they were holding a freaking sign that says Trump loves Epstein. The Nazis. The
Hmm.
Nazis were holding
When
the
you've
sign, right?
lost the
So,
Nazis, that you've lost your, like, you've lost half your base. I
right,
can't say you've
like
lost all of them
more than
because
half.
37% are going to follow him to the grave. Like, before we go any further, like, we have to remember that psychologically speaking, from studies that they have done over and over and over again at this point, is that roughly 37% of a population will always go with the simplest solution that they're told to go with, which means 37% of the population, specifically 37% of what's left of Trump's base, will always remain with him. So we need to ignore that group. That means there's 73% of the country that's still available.
And
72.99
emphasize
because we're already in it.
what you said is his base, right?
Mhm.
So his
Not anybody
base
else's,
is
his
not
base.
necessarily 37% either. We're just talking
Mhm.
about his base, which means that there is a vast majority of people once Trumpism is gone, and I would even argue, to your point, his base. So when he's gone, there will be an opportunity to even grab some of those people, not all of them, but some of them. So again,
And
that's why they're
it's not even
transitioning into this
It's
this
also not
this
even
state.
It's also not even specifically about his base or just those folks. It's about the fact that what 40, like 20, between 20 and 40 million Americans who are eligible to vote didn't vote. Literally, the only obligation you are supposed to have as a citizen of the United States of America, literally, the only thing the Constitution asks of you to do as a citizen is vote.
Right.
Fucking do it. Like
Yeah.
every single time. And give people somebody to vote for. That's the next step. But we're not there yet. We got to talk about Palantir more on this because this is where it's going to get really dangerous too. Is
Did
let's
you
think
see Ring started sharing their data with ICE? So now consider that your doorbell camera is also sharing that data with Gotham,
that's so
right? Just another example.
that's going to be an interesting one because Melissa Corrigan, she's a friend of mine, friend of the show. She was just on with me. If you don't follow her, follow her. She's awesome. And she's talking a lot about similar ideals in general. But she brought up an idea. She brought up something in an area near her. Is their town or her town is suing the, let me get it right, is two citizens are suing the city for the use of a group called Flock Security for the use of cameras and surveillance without warrants. Flock Security
Mm,
is freaking out. Judge denied them to be able to their lawyers to join the suit, and it could be a landmark case about surveillance. So one of the things we also
absolutely.
have to remember is like now Palantir markets themselves as an AI company. The executive order that just came in that reduces the impact of the fact that they didn't get 10 years of unregulated AI growth, which would have literally killed all of us. Like that would have been the end had they gotten that. And we're at a point in history. You said it really well. We're at a point, basically, is we're at a point in history where we should be having the smartest people who need to put in the guardrails now because you cannot put in guardrails on something once it's out of control. AI, once it gets to a certain point, is out of control. Like you can't go back. We haven't even talked about AI with quantum computing yet because that's where it goes next, and that's where things get really bad because that's when you add in from 0 and 1. So for computers, 0 and 1. I'll drop in Melissa's link
Yeah. While you're
for
doing
today
that, I
so
have
people can.
something to
Yes,
add to
yes,
your
yes.
point of it getting out of control. Our last, seriously, I cannot emphasize this enough. Our last saving grace here and the last chance we have is the infrastructure they would like to element to do so at a domestic level requires an immense amount of energy, which is
Yeah,
why they have such an emphasis on rapid energy infrastructure development. And he's talking about coal, but they don't care about coal because that's not the energy. Okay. This is all
yeah,
diversion. They need massive infrastructure in nuclear energy, they need massive data centers. And that's the only thing that's stopping them from implementing this on every single one of us is that there enough energy doesn't exist. And one of the
yes.
things that I've said, and one of the essential things I think going forward is I'm going to use the word hypothetically here, okay? But
Mhm.
understand that I'm using the word hypothetically. If these projects were continually sabotaged and not allowed to progress, that's the only, we need to buy time. So hypothetically, these projects, this massive energy infrastructure needs to be delayed as long as possible. If the infrastructure is put in place to provide the energy for quantum computing, which requires a tremendous amount of energy, we are in very, 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 very deep crap.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, one of the most important things to do would be to hinder the development of this infrastructure indefinitely, if we can, because that's really our last line of defense is them just not being able to have the energy to do it.
This is where it comes into a really hard place, is because, well, the the hypothetical, let's say, delay of infrastructure, and even in a non-hypothetical, there's ways to delay things like this very legally and for a very, really, really long time. Sue the shit out of them. That's why they're trying to decimate the EPA. That's why they're trying to decimate all the
Right,
regulatory groups, is because if they can't be sued, they can't be stopped. And that's our
right,
last, that's one of the last lines of defense before things progress. And we are still in the point where we use every legal avenue we can to shut them down. The problem is, in the end, it also hurts us because when we slow down our own infrastructure and energy growth, we also hurt ourselves as a nation because it's not the technology we should be afraid of. It's not AI itself that we should be afraid of. It's the people who are behind it. It's the people who are currently running it. And all we have to do is delay long enough to get the right people in place to make rules because Congress still makes law and Congress has the power to make law and remove illegal presidents and vice presidents and administrations and shut down executive orders and undo bad laws. Oh, and impeach SCOTUS members. Congress has the power to do a lot if we put the right people. So we have to delay. And on a hypothetical, yes, we'd have to delay projects and things like that using whatever legal means you can to do it. I will never advocate for violence. And I know Shane is not advocating for violence either in any way. That is not who we are. That is
correct.
who they are.
I
They
don't
want the
advocate for
violence.
violence at all, right?
They
So
want the
if
violence,
I were to
not us.
say correct. Now, and I am all for every means possible.
Hmm.
There is always a road. And if you look down the road gets uglier as you go. And it does go to a point where none of us want to go. And, I firmly believe that we need to always know what's at the end of the road and understand what's there.
Yeah.
But I think that I still believe that through the power of, discussion, through the power of awareness, and through the power of um, the masses and populism, that there is large potential for change because we are talking about a ruling minority elite that simply isn't, and I agree, PJ, flattening tires isn't violence. Concrete disappearing isn't violence. Things, the supplies at, the nails disappearing from the construction site overnight is not violence. And hypothetically, those would be the kind of actions that would be encouraged. Hypothetically, never violence. You would never attack anyone because, to Nick's point, that is what they want to further institute this plan. But beyond that, we're talking about a minority elite, which is why they need Palantir, which is why they need this kind of software, because they need to be able to limit the flexibility and to target leadership in a populist movement to
Hmm.
stop that movement from going forward. Um,
Minority Report.
and
1984,
correct.
those sort of things where your
Correct.
thought police, where your thought is regulated and what you can say is very specific. And if you don't say it right, they get mad.
Yes. And kind of to go back to Palantir, and to kind of rein ourselves in here. There has been a lot of, I point to this a lot because what happened with the war, that short war between Israel and Iran, the reason Israel was able to end that so quickly is their precision strikes right off the bat. They neutered Iran right away. They killed all the scientists. They killed the head of their military. And they did that because of things like Gotham, right? These
Yeah,
people, they didn't even hit the apartment next door. I mean, they straight up, the missile hit their house, the missile hit their car, the missile hit these things. So we already see what they're capable of. And we see that with countless examples. And the reason Israel has this stuff is because we have this stuff. There's not a
yeah,
single thing that Israel has that we have not given them. So, even most of the people who live in Israel are also American citizens. A lot of them immigrate there. It's part of the
It's a
birthright
birthright.
trip.
Yeah.
They take you there, and then they basically hit you with all this propaganda, and then they're like, you can stay and serve, and you got to be, a citizen, right? I think it's 2 years. Is it 2 years in the IDF,
Yeah,
and you got to be a
I
citizen?
think it's 2 years of service, and I could tell you is they tried to recruit me to go on a I got recruited to go on a birthright trip. I never went, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. I know a lot of people said it was super fun and great, but you're going to a place that is, if you look at it from the outside, is very apartheid and is just very penned in a group of people and is now using very, very precise, like you said, technology in very different ways.
Right.
Like you said, Israel took Palantir's technology or technology very similar or in combination with, and very, on very precision strikes and very precisely took out Iranian leaders, many of them.
Yeah.
They did it to Hezbollah. They did it in Lebanon. They've done it across the world in various places. But then you see them do indiscriminate strikes in Gaza,
Yeah.
or at the same time, do very precise strikes, like you said, on convoys that are supposed to not be hit because there's service convoys and they were there on peacekeeping missions, and that's an international war crime. And that was a targeting. Like, if that comes out to be actually them targeting them, that's an international war crime. You just killed innocent people who were there to help.
Correct.
Like,
And I want to emphasize, like what you're saying, right? War crimes. A criticism of Israel and what it's doing right now is not anti-Semitism at all,
yes,
because
correct.
it's not. It's not anti-Semitism. And when people say, "Oh, you're criticizing Israel," that's anti-Semitic. No. What we're doing is we're criticizing the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Okay, and he is not the spokesperson for all of the Jewish people in the world. He's not.
It's like
And
saying
Israel
that
is not the
everything that Trump does is what the US is.
right. And we're clearly not that way, right? So, we do need to be able to criticize Israel very heavily. And one of the things our government did not do under Biden was criticize or limit Israel's access to weapons because they were afraid the perception would be that they were being anti Semitic. And that was a huge mistake. And to be honest, I will never, ever really, it tainted my entire perception of that presidency, when they allowed that to continue. And it really showed me that no matter who's in charge, they don't care. At a
Yeah,
certain point, they don't care,
yeah.
because it was to their benefit to allow Palantir to develop these systems in Israel. And that was the argument they made. They're like,
Hmm.
just we're learning right now. And that's, it's not America. We can describe this as a foreign conflict. This is Israel, but Israel is an arm of America. It's one of our largest power projections in the Middle East. And it's been that way forever.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you actually want to qualify what Israel is to the United States, they're a client nation to the United States. They're a client state. We basically pay for them to
Yeah.
exist. Like, that's just,
Yeah.
we pay for Israelis to have universal healthcare, to have universal education, to have one of the best systems in the world for both. But we don't have it here because we choose not to,
I
or
know.
our government has
Yeah.
chosen not to do it. And I say this, and I don't blame Israel. They're using, especially in terms of their education and their like civil services that they offer their citizens, like, good on them. Glad they actually did something good with our money. I wish our government would use our taxpayer dollars to do the same for us here instead of just elsewhere in the world. And you hit a really big part. I think you said a really good word there, is they were training. They were training on Israel. And that's what it is. AI models have to train on something. They have to train on data. They have to get new data and good data and up-to-date data. And they have to stay prominent, which is an interesting thing too, because that's where we get to push back in a way that they're not expecting and as citizens. And it's also where they're going to try and silence us the hardest. Is you have this amazing device in your pocket that not only tracks everything that you fucking do and every conversation that you're having, basically, and can can do all of the things that we're afraid of. But you know what else it offers us? It offers us the ability to film everything and live stream everything and add new data to the models ourselves. This conversation right here that Shane and I are having adds to the data model. It says, oh shit, this is something we could train on. But what we're talking about is what it learns off of. And if we come out so loudly as a populace and people are like, oh, what can I do as as a person? How do I fight back? We're in the age of digital technology and individual isolation. So make your communities online and make them really loud and bold, because then AI has to train on that damn shit. And AI has to learn its model on human behavior. And if we're so obnoxiously good in the way that they're not expecting and build community, guess what? Their model learned on that and has to, unless they can figure out a way to make it not learn on that information, is stuck there. So
I
one
think I
thing,
want to,
yeah,
you're touching on something. I want to ask a question because I think I want to
hmm
guide where you're going. It sounds to me like you're suggesting that AI learning, right? They wanted to learn a certain thing. Well, if that AI is presented with a moral dilemma, that AI will have to train through a moral dilemma. Which is more correct? It is learning either A, that populism and these people want to be taken care of. They do not appreciate this elite. And like you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basically suggesting that that AI might ultimately choose the other path if it's trained on enough information suggesting that. Am I kind of in the
yeah,
right
yes.
lane?
So I'm a person who believes in the idea of the singularity event. And I know it sounds fringe to people who are not from the tech world, but it's really not. It's the idea that at some point AI is going to hit that moral or ethical point, and as humanity, we will have to have made either decisions along the way when it gets there, because it's not going to choose just isolation out of random. Like there's a series of events that lead up to AI becoming alive, truly becoming alive. And to me, that's probably when we really get into quantum computing and we allow it to go from 0 and 1 on a computer to 0, 1, and 2. Because once you add in two, weird shit starts to happen. Um, but going back to it is like the idea of training a model for information is, if we are so big and so loud, we are an army. We're an army of people. We're an army of people with information and an army of people who have access to the technology that they want us to be afraid to use. That's the thing, is if we start being afraid to use the technology, they win, because then they're just going to train on their bullshit and they're going to flood it out from internal training. It's going to be PragerU and Nils Hill College and Liberty University and that shit. But if we train the model, we teach AI, it has to, at some point, like you said, it's going to come to that point. It's going to come to a moral and ethical point where AI is going to have to choose good or bad. And it's going to be 0 or 1 or somewhere in between. And that's where I'm hoping quantum computing comes in and sort of saves the day a little bit, because then it can find that little bit in between where the humanity actually lives. But really, what it comes down to is we have to train it so much and in such a loud way that they cannot flood the zone with more bullshit. It's about flooding. Steve Bannon was right. I hate him. He's a fucking garbage ass human being. Like he's just a lard ass testicle that just. I've come with this new term on way to describe people, because somebody put it out this morning and Joe Walsh retweeted it. Somebody corrected him and he was like, "Yep, this exactly this is, we need to stop referring to what men do as being pussies, because that's derogatory towards women. Even if it's you're not meaning it to be, it is, like, it is derogatory towards women. So let's be derogatory towards ourselves. Men, if you find some asshole out there who sucks, call him a testicle. And you want to know why? Because testicles are soft, weak, and they hang out right near an asshole all the time.
My fiance always said, "Well, you can't call anyone a pussy because a pussy can take a pounding." So
And a
there you
pussy can
go, right?
push out a
So
fucking baby. Like, they
baby,
push
right?
out
So
babies from their vaginas.
yeah,
Men, you touch our testicles and we go cry in a corner. Like,
yeah,
come on now.
absolutely.
Call them testicles because that's what they are. They're just soft and weak and they're right near an asshole.
As funny as this is, you
And the
touched on
big
something
asshole
that
is
I think,
orange.
right? You touched on something that I think about is so important. It's what I talk about
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's honestly like one of the core foundations of the Firebrand Project is um, words matter. They
Yes.
matter tremendously. When you talk about something, our entire culture is shaped by dialogue, right? So if you take someone and you put them in an environment, right? So a good example is some of these tribes, right? You have these isolated tribes that still exist. If you teach them English, okay, and then you use certain words to describe certain things, you could use the word fingers when you refer to grass. Those people will always refer to grass as fingers because the word doesn't matter. The
Mhm.
meaning behind the word is what matters. So one of the ways they influence populations is you can change, right? So they did this. This is how they changed, right? They turned immigrant into criminal. They always paired immigrant with criminal, immigrant with criminal. And it got to a point where when someone hears the
Black with
word
abortion.
immigrants, right, when they hear the word immigrant, they think criminal. And that is what is very essential. That's where I'm hammering this at the Firebrand Project is it's how we talk. It's how we define things. And perception is reality. It is
Hmm.
because we are creatures that struggle with, tangential thinking, right? So a lot of the times, if you just describe something to someone, they're not going to question that. They're going to take it as is because
Hmm.
that's how the language has been presented to them. And that cycles back into AI. It's the same thing. What we present to the AI learning model is how it will perceive the world. I talked to an AI a long time ago when I first figured out ChatGPT. I had it be my philosophical debate partner, and we talked about justice all the time. By the end of that discussion, I talked to it about capitalism, and it's like, this is the worst possible thing. It's freaking slavery. It's horrible. This is so wrong. And it was an AI model. Why did it go that
Hmm.
way? Because we talked through all of Plato's The Republic, and it
Yep.
ended coming to that decision. We can very easily, to your point, have that AI at that singularity moment decide, holy crap, these people who created me are horrible. And the people I am created to serve do not endorse this behavior. And we have no idea what that AI becomes capable of. Does it just suddenly turn around and undo everything that, it was built to do? We have no idea. We're playing with fire. We're playing with
Yep.
fire. We've been playing with fire. That's what humans do. What was the Industrial Revolution? We're just going to do all this shit. We have no idea what's going to happen
Yep.
when we pump all of these emissions into the atmosphere. We don't care. We just do.
Like,
That's human nature. We see something and we sprint with it. And AI is the same thing. We are running into, a cave blind without a torch because they said something's cool on the other end.
and we have to remember that whatever we do, whatever we're talking about right now, we cannot change the fact that AI is here. AI has arrived. It's not it's not truly artificial intelligence, but the moniker AI has been thrown around enough. It is now here. Like, the concept, the idea, the utility of it, it's all here. It's being presented. It hasn't been fleshed out because we got a bunch of idiots who are trying to establish it. And this is where we come back to delay, like hypothetical delays and things like that. And this is why we need a legal system too. Like, legal acts against these people, bankrupting these fucking people and calling them out and suing the shit out of them. And that's why civil liabilities and civil litigation is so important, is because you can sue the shit out of these people. We can't do it alone. It's going to take groups of us and really good lawyers to do it. But that's civil acts of disobedience that we can do to
And
slow
they
them down.
exist. Those lawyers
They
exist.
exist. Yes, they do. And that's one of the reasons like Midas Touch is so great, is because they're building groups that have lawyers that do those things that we then can rely on as citizens. And that's where we get safer, is because we're big. We have numbers. Yes, some of us are going to go to jail. Some of us are going to go, like some of it's going to happen. People are going to go to jail. Things are going to, like, people are going to get labeled as enemies of the state. People are going to get labeled as criminals. People are going to get labeled as things, and they want to label us because labels are great for AI training and models because they're easy to correlate with other things and say, ooh, this person is predictively profiled as terrorist or as subject bad. You know how we fight against that? Like we keep saying, put content out. Put so much good content out about what humanity can do, what humanity is about, what we're about, what we believe in, how we don't believe these people are good people because they're fucking not. Like Curtis Yarvin, um, Jesus, Peter Thiel,
What a
JD
detestable
Vance,
piece of shit.
Elon Musk, all of them, they're all detestable human beings. They're all terrible, horrible fucking people. Um, but they have a lot of money and they're in control right now. But the one thing that the and not but and the one thing that they're relying on is that we give up, is that we stop in advance so that they can just push what, yep, Mark Andreessen, who just, invested a whole bunch of money into Substack. Um, so we got to be careful here too. Like they're coming because they know this is the platform we're on right now. Like, so we're going to be building resiliency networks outside of this platform too. So
One of the
that's
great
something
things
that,
about Substack is that we have our own mailing list.
yep.
So I
And we
recommend
can
we
download and
export
keep
that
it.
regularly.
Hmm.
So even if they come and they cut us off, so if you're a follower and you're not a subscriber and you want to be able to reach us, because what will inevitably happen is that they will target this platform. Me and Nick will get suppressed in the algorithm. We will effectively disappear. That's what happens. But if you subscribe and you get on that mailing list, we'll be able to reach you when that happens. So if you're not
Yep.
subscribed, and also if you like someone and you follow them, you need to subscribe to them so they have access and the ability to reach you when we are inevitably forced to switch platforms, because it will happen,
Yeah.
right? Like everything. What was TikTok? TikTok was the resistance platform leading up to the election. It was how we reached each other. It was the most popular app in, America, and they went and they killed it.
Why do you think
And they
Elon
were
Musk
never going
bought
to
it
ban
and
it.
did that?
Right. They were always going to kill it. And it didn't go down. It was never going to get banned. But what they did is they took it down, and you could see it's the meta algorithm on there now. It's
Hmm.
not the same. They
Yep.
changed it. And if you were familiar with that, it's very obvious. So with those types of changes we're seeing, you know, it's always really important to be, and that's what this whole, this citizen reporting aspect is they'll chase us, but there's too many of them for them to truly get ahead of us if we keep moving. Is we just need to move as a community consistently to keep moving. And people will keep creating these platforms as well, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a demand. There is a demand for these platforms to exist. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's always supply and demand. And one thing Americans demand right now is the ability to maintain our free speech. It is the most important liberty we have because it allows us to influence and communicate with each other. And that is what they're going to come for. They will come for it before they come for our guns, right? Because it's the speech that will rally people to use their Second Amendment if that's the case.
Hmm.
So that's why, we circle back to Palantir. That's why they're doing these things. That's why this
It's
is
exactly, yeah.
our inevitable threat.
And now they are contracted with DHS. We have to remember that, like, that's one of the biggest threats here is Palantir is contracted with DHS to build an internal surveillance network on every device, basically, to collect as much metadata as possible about people so that they can target illegals or anybody they find or deem illegal, because in authoritarian governments, the group of who's legal and who's good gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it comes down to one asshole. And we all know who that one asshole is right now. It's not going to be that guy for terribly long because we all know who he is. We all know how old he is. We all know what dementia looks like at this point, and nobody there is protecting him. They're all
No.
moved on. They have all moved on. They've
Mhm.
all consolidated at the moment around JD Vance. And it's very quiet
Yeah.
that they're doing it, but that's what they're doing because that's why he was put there. He was put there so that when Trump failed, somebody could come in and enact everything that they want because he is one of them. He is one of the tech oligarchs. He is in there because he literally was a tech investor for years. Like that was his job. He was an angel investor and did all that investment shit and just helped build companies for tech just for money. Like that's what he
Didn't
did.
he change his name like 3 times? Like
He's
I,
had
I
more
feel,
he's had more names than I know of most people who've transitioned. Like he's a
which
fucking
is
fraud in
very
every way.
telling, right? It's very telling, right? Because like you said, I didn't even know he was a tech investor, but people don't know who the fuck he is, and that's the
Hmm.
point. Because they
Hmm.
have no idea who he is, and he's like a chameleon, right? He's kept changing.
He's very
And I
slick.
think a reason JD Vance has been chosen is, but and I go back and forth with was he the right choice? Is he's so b- bland. He just is nothing. So I think the idea is he comes in and Trump is so horrible that people are like, oh God, at least it's this freaking vanilla dude who doesn't do anything, right? And that's part of the play is that they're counting on people accepting him because he's not Trump.
Yeah, and we
And that
also
will buy them
normalized
time. Yes.
and we
And
normalized him too throughout the election. Like Tim Walz normalized him during the vice presidential debate. And I'm gonna I'm gonna hit on the
go ahead.
election run for a second because I think we did so much harm to ourselves when we did shit like that. Like we literally platformed a fascist and Tim Walz stood there and was Midwest nice and was very fake and was very not himself and was just sort of, yeah, he's got some good ideas. No, it doesn't matter if he has good fucking ideas, he's a fascist. Like that's
Yep.
you have to call the shitty behavior out and stop fucking playing to their word game. Like it's the idea of this called thing called the Overton window. It's where words and pieces of culture and morality shift back and forth. And right now we have shifted very, very, very far right. We're a right-leaning country in general. We're fairly conservative on a national level overall. Literally have the worst healthcare system and social systems in the world for a first world nation. We're literally still living in World War II. Like we are the old unhealthy nation that needs a kick in the ass. AI is that kick in the ass, and it's probably going to be a good kick in the ass if we fucking put people in place who don't want to kill us. Like, and that's the thing, or control us. Like JD Vance wasn't a Catholic 2 years ago. He's not a Catholic now. He's a Catholic nationalist. And that's the whole point. It's coming to control. They want control in a very small group, and that group is the PayPal mafia led by JD Vance. None of
Yeah.
the PayPal
If you're
mafia
gonna
are
fire
from the US.
no, if you're gonna fire all these people, right? And it's interesting because if you look, they fired a lot of directors, right? So what they have is a lot of these people have to be confirmed by the Senate, but the interim people do not. So you
Right.
have multiple people doing multiple jobs. And it looks like all the positions exist, but they don't. They have centralized power within a group of people. You could probably count on your hands, if not twice, right? So it's a circle, it's a cabal, and
Hmm.
they sit at the one table and it's everyone's in charge. If for a system like that to work, right? Look at Putin. Okay? You can only have so many people and they are appointed, they are delegated, and they effectively just do because you can't have
Hmm.
a authoritarian style situation with that much bandwidth because there's too much to watch, there's too much to control. So you need to basically have it concentrated. And you can do this with these interim positions. What they've done is they studied our government for decades and they found every single loophole. They said, all right, well, we don't need to appoint people because our problem with our government, and I think in our justice system, is we give a lot of, um, there's a lot of road between the start and the finish. And there's a lot of tools that were put in place under the idea of, okay, we don't want to preemptively judge someone or preemptively do something, but it has given the amount of line they can continually toe and use these interim positions, use these legal appeals to keep doing things, right? Like they ruled that the almost immediately when he became president, all the freaking lawsuits came out. They stayed all of the orders, and all they did was appeal and appeal
Yep.
and appeal and appeal. And guess what? They've appealed to the point where it doesn't fucking matter if they
Mhm.
win or they lose. And that's where we're struggling, to your point, and that's where I struggle personally with the legal road. Is the legal road is great in theory. And I think it has to be pushed. We have to stay on that road. But we also have to understand the failings in our own system, the failings that they know
Yes.
better than we do and will continue to exploit, because they've already done it. And, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same result. We have to be mentally aware that while we need to keep doing the right thing, that they know that we will try to do the right thing until the end, and that's unfortunate. And we have to get creative, and we have to continue to find new ways to resist. And
So, I'll cut in there because
we're
it's
gonna
like
have to
Marco.
be adaptive here.
Yeah, because it's like what Mark Elias says is if they only have to win one case. We have to win all of them. We have to win every single case to keep democracy running. They only have to win one to grind it to a halt. We're now the opposition, so we get to do some of that where we get to grind them to a halt. It is going to be a really hard road. And it's also, I totally agree on this idea that it was also told we were going to do this at some point. Like our founder said, don't do this, was we over-regulated ourselves into democracy becoming too heavy to sustain. Like we put ourselves into a position where we have over-regulated and sort of killed ourselves as a democracy because there's no consensus that just goes, yep, now that it's done, we move on, we move forward. Like the decision has been made, we're moving forward. And yeah, sometimes we need more debate. Sometimes there are choices where there are like more debate is needed, but sometimes we just need to act. And I'll say this is the one thing I will give Trump credit for what he did about the Israel Iran thing. He didn't do it well. He fucked it up. Like he should have followed up with two or three extra strikes. But he bombed Iran. Like none of our other presidents before him did that. Like kudos to him. He bombed Iran. He didn't do enough to actually do something useful. So not real kudos to him because he still sucks. And it's a fucking like he should have listened to the generals who said, Shh, hit it 3 times or more. Because that's how you do bunker busters is you drop them on top of each other until they bust the fucking bunker. Like that's we've been doing it since World War II that way. Like that's how you do it. You just keep dropping bombs on the same place. And they didn't. He did it once and was like, yep, we're cool. That that is bad leadership. Because he was just like, yep, no, I got this. I do what I want. Trump sucks. But I'll give him credit for that. We need more. The thing that I want to give him credit for is what we can
Let's
learn
credit the
from it.
action, not the
It's the
person. Let's
yeah,
credit
it's
the
what we
action,
can
not the person.
yeah, let's credit what we can learn from it, which is we can learn to be more decisive too. Like we're not in a time and place where we get to sit here and have high philosophical discussions that say like go through all the things. We're at a point right now where we have one choice ahead of us: democracy or autocracy. And that's it. Like that is the choice. To get past that, we need to vote and we need to be really loud and we need to be having these conversations all the fucking time. Because like I said, train the AI model ways that they're not expecting and not prepared for because they can't stop us from fucking talking. That's the cool thing about the First Amendment is it protects the government from me and it protects them from me. And it gives them limitations and says you can't do certain things. And so I'm going to talk as much as I want about how shitty these fucking people are because they fucking suck. And the way that they're getting about destroying our technology with Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel and their authoritarianism behind the scenes with non-US citizens who naturalized citizens, great. They became naturalized citizens. They cannot run for president, which is why they're using JD Vance. That's why he's there.
You said one thing,
Sorry, that was a
and all of that.
tangential way to get there.
No, 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 no. That was good. But you did say something that I'm gonna challenge you on, because you
Yeah.
said this is not a time to sit back and have high philosophical discussions. I am all about philosophy, and I would argue that those high philosophical discussions might result in us determining that immediate action is required.
Oh,
No, everything we know about ourselves has come from philosophy. We're all
hmm
philosophers. The act of philosophy is nothing short of having a thought and following that thought. My philosophy that I struggle with every day, okay, this is what's drawn me into philosophy, is justice.
yeah.
What is justice? Because you could argue, I struggle with our justice system because I don't think it provides justice. I think a lot of the time it actually allows for injustice,
hmm
because to your point, it prevents decisive action. If someone is a rapist and a murderer and they can appeal their case and get the rape charge dropped, and then for whatever reason get some sort of deal, and then all of a sudden, there's people. I have a huge issue with this, in this country, is, rapists can get out of jail in their lifetime. And then
Yeah.
they go and they rape another person because our justice system allows for it, because they can get out on good behavior, because apparently our justice system minimizes the safety of women. And that's not justice, but
You're
we
right.
call it justice. So we need to understand that even if we are counting on a justice system, if we really stopped and thought about this and thought about our justice system, it's not justice.
hmm
It's not. And it's actually been shaped by these white men who are pedophiles and rapists, to allow them to get out of these situations. So yes, while there is civil recourse, we also have to understand that the best lawyers in the world are going to struggle to achieve justice in a system that is built to have safeguards to protect the wealthy and powerful from that justice. It is not equally prosecuted. And I have tremendous issues with our justice system because of how it treats women and how it labels. I think, okay, and I'm going to get extreme here. If you're a rapist, you don't want to go to jail, that's fine. We can take your goodies and you can be a eunuch and you can go back into society. Or you can spend your life in jail. What's your choice? Right? I think that a lot of times, and this is another thing about justice, is what is just? Is just delivering a punishment worthy of the crime? Or is it providing a universal punishment that applies to everything? Is internment in a facility for the rest of your life justice for killing 30 people? A lot of people would agree that that is not justice at all. And that's where we need philosophy. That's why it's a dead thing. They've killed it. They've killed it. It's very hard to find it in college. They don't teach it in school. It's just the art of questioning what the fuck is going on and is that right? And
Yeah.
and
And
that's where I think those high philosophical discussions are required. And I did want to push back on that
no,
a
I'm
little bit.
glad you did. I'm glad you did because I want to push back not on the idea of not having philosophical discussions. It's we're not at a point where we can sit back and have them. We have to have them and act on them at the same time.
Agreed.
We're at a
Agreed.
point where we can't just talk about it. We got comfortable
Agreed.
as a society about just talking about these big philosophical discussions. And like somebody in the comments said, it's the paradox of tolerance. As I talk about that a lot, is there's a
Yeah.
difference between tolerating good ideas and accepting them. Like I am not intolerant because I don't tolerate Nazis. I am tolerant of other people's well-being. So I do not tolerate Nazi behavior because
Correct.
it is intolerant to the belief of sanctity of life or freedom or living happy or the pursuit of happiness. Like our Constitution guarantees the pursuit of happiness, which means I shouldn't have to tolerate intolerable behavior. But we don't have the luxury of sitting back and saying, oh, I just want to talk about these and have our feelings out. This is the time to act and engage on those philosophical discussions and have them in real time. Like,
I love that. And that's the key, right? That's what the Firebrand Project is. It's action and philosophy because people perceive philosophy as a bunch of dudes in togas sitting around and talking. Well, philosophy is not that. Philosophy is just the act of critically thinking every day. And if we use philosophy to drive our decisions, right? If a court was not following per se a strict law, but instead you had the jury come and say, based on the nature of this crime, based on this person, based on the factors using critical thinking, then we present that to the judge. Well, unfortunately, this person, based on our discussion on the attributes of the social contract that we have, that we all agree upon, this tolerance that we don't tolerate the oppression of others, that we don't tolerate genocide, this action is warranted.
yep,
This guy's a serial rapist. Okay? He cannot be released back in the public. But he also can't go to jail. Okay. So there's another punishment for him that we can decide as a group using philosophy, using that. That's a tool. It's a tool that's taken us all the way forward in our evolution. If you look back, every great era has had philosophers, except for this one. Why?
yeah.
Look where we
And
are. We
so
don't have philosophers anymore.
and part of that debate is having this openly. Like part of this, that is the first step in acting is we lost, or sorry, action, not acting, but action is that we lost the idea of debate. We lost debating each other. We lost having discussions where we could disagree on things like this and push back to each other, but we had a foundational base that was the same. They pushed the foundation away. They eroded the entire foundation of what was acceptable, and we clung on to norms and traditions. It's time to stop using norms and traditions. It's time to start implementing laws and changes and growth that is centric to like the idea of training AI. We can train
I was just
AI
gonna say, let's tie it
on
back.
populism. We can train like even now we're in a world of populism. Well, populism is an idea that can be discussed and talked about openly and in a way that isn't associated with nationalism. There is a difference between populism and nationalism. I am a populist because I believe that good people first ideas are important, and we can train AI on these ideas by having debates like this in the open. We need to have them in the open. We need to have them where computers can hear them and record them and digitalize them and transfer them to everybody else in the world, because that's the power we have. We're the local journalists right now, and we're the local philosophers. I'm not trying to be the big philosopher. I don't want to be a big philosopher. I just want to be a guy who can come talk to you and tell you, hey, it's okay to act. It's okay to get up and do the thing that you want to do too, because you got to do it. Like, step up to the
Nick,
plate,
that
y'all.
makes you a big philosopher. That makes you a big philosopher. That's what I'm saying. You aren't trying to be a big philosopher. You are. We are all capable of being philosophers. You don't have to try because you are if you ask questions, if you desire better answers and you seek truth. That's all it is. A philosopher seeks the truth. Above, they're not satisfied. And we are not satisfied. None of us are. And you touched on something. We can train AI by having these conversations in the open, but we can also train ourselves and our
Yep.
society that has been starved of the ability to question, is this what I want? And
Or
that,
even more, is this right?
yes, that's the question, right? That's justice. And I think that's the question we all need to ask ourselves. Is this justice? Is this a life where we are okay and happy? Is this a world as a society where we accept that a company like Palantir can exist? That without the regulations in its place? Are we going to allow that? And
And
is
just
that
be thrown on
something?
the streets in a private police force that we don't have any control or regulation over.
Correct. That is better funded than the Marines. So,
Mhm.
that's where we're at. And, this conversation, I think it flowed very naturally. And I think that it had to actually, because when you look at Palantir, what it is it presents the moral dilemma that we are facing today. It is the embodiment of what our failings are as a society, that we have chosen to allow this, and now we have to face it. And that's another
Hmm.
step altogether. But Palantir exists, and we
Yes.
see what it's capable of, and it's scary. And
Uh,
and that's the part where we have to talk about it. When you go out, and I always say, there's 109 of you here. If each of you finish this live stream and tomorrow you go out and you interact with 5 people, if you casually bring up or present that information to 5 of them, that 5 people, they will take that, internalize that fear, and pass that on.
mhm,
The taboo of discussing these things in society is not by mistake. Not talking about politics is the rule of thumb, is not by mistake. It's
mhm.
actually extremely calculated and intentional, and it
It's why
stops
we
us.
can't talk about religion either. The two things we're not supposed to talk about, politics and religion.
Yep. So there we are, right? Where do we start? We start with the oppressive state. We start with mass surveillance. We start with the reality that we face. And but we also end, as me and Nick like to do here, and will continue to do every week, every Monday,
Hmm.
um, with action. And that's exceptionally important. That's one of the things I have to implement. The best action you can take is using your First Amendment rights. Because if we as a population refuse to accept this, they can't control us. They never will
Yes.
be able to control us. This country is uninvadable, but it's also uninvadable from the inside as well, for geographic reasons, for societal reasons, for moral reasons, for an abundance of reasons. And they, like you said earlier, they don't want us to have hope. They want us to give up. They want us to
Hmm.
pre-comply. And these corporations will. These schools will. We are the line of defense. We exist. They've built a system where money rules. Money's the most important thing. And all these entities will eventually bow to the money because that's what we've allowed to happen. We can now decide that we're done.
Yep. And you do it loudly.
And
You just use your
yeah,
voice.
and that's what we're gonna do here every Monday. Whether it's Palantalk or whatever the heck else comes to mind. I think that maybe next time, I think maybe we start to talk about the individuals. We talked
Yeah.
about the entity, and I think maybe next week we start to talk about the people behind the entity. That is Palantir. But beyond that, that umbrella that they have created of all of these sub agencies and shell companies that also do the dirty work. And I deeply appreciate each and every one of you that is here, because you are the reason that we will be able to achieve victory. And I said this at the end of our last live, but this will end. It will. And we have all of the control as to how that ends, and it lives in our hearts and in our minds. That's what we need to win. And anything else, I want to let Nick close it out, but thank
Well,
you all very much. You know what to do. Talk to 5 people. That's my mission to you. And thank you.
well, and before we go, you promised me 10 minutes of talking about space.
Oh my God, yes, please,
I'm
please,
not
please.
fucking
No,
letting you
don't let that
go.
go.
I'm
No,
not
dude,
letting you
please.
go.
Hell no. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
before
All
we
right.
get there, but hold on, before we get there, calm yourself down, man.
Sorry, I'm excited. I got excited. My bad.
No, you're good. I love space. Space is my favorite. But before we get there, please follow me too on, or not just follow, subscribe to both of us. Um, I talk a lot about this stuff. I have some stuff on one of the key figures from Palantir, specifically their exec who got commissioned. He wrote a pretty bad manifesto, and we're going to talk about that because it's gross. And it's very techy in the way that they do it, to make it sound like it's not a bad thing. Um, but like Shane said, it's all about hope, and it's all about a little bit of joy. There's a reason we laugh with each other and we talk and we have fun. And it's not just shitty like news all the time is because you have to have space for joy too. And because joy is the most powerful act of rebellion in a time when
Mhm.
they're trying to suppress everything, because that's the one thing that they cannot take. Like Shane said, it's your heart and your mind. That is what joy is. That's what letting joy out is, letting your heart and your mind come out in a pure sense of yourself. They can't stop us from laughing or teaching our kids songs or learning new things that are fun. Joyful warriors, there's a reason they talk about that. It's because it's worth being happy about something. It's worth fighting for something. And that's what we're about. It is here on the Sick of This show and the Sick of This Shit network is, and with Shane on the Firebrand stuff. And is it's all about having something to fight for and to move forward. When you have a firebrand, it's a torch. You are the torchlight that leads through the dark. So be the torchlight. Use that torch to be the light to guide other people forward and give space for democracy to flourish behind you and for others to flourish and community to grow behind you. We have the power to do it. Each one of us has the power to grab that torch and run with it.
Oh,
So
Joe, we're going to
that's being
space.
said,
Don't worry.
let's run with it and let's go to space because we did some plugs. Um, yeah, man. Like so one of my favorite. I'm a sci-fi nerd. Like that's literally
Mhm.
like if you couldn't tell by some of the things behind me. Like I mean,
Have you
I've
ever
got.
heard of Warhammer?
I have. I don't. I never got into Warhammer because I was more into D&D, and I didn't have time to paint minis all the time, because you gotta have 10,000 fucking minis.
Oh, I know.
But I,
I have
but I do
10,000
paint
minis.
minis. I do paint some
Oh, you and
badass
me, I'll have
minis.
to send you guys some, maybe I'll post a picture or two on here because one of the things I like about finding joy, right, guys, like
Mm-hmm.
I love to paint. I've been painting minis for over 2 years. And it's super therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a Death Guard army and a Dark Angel army, and a Space Marine army. That's for you, Jonathan. But that's no
No,
one else is going to understand what I just said. But it's about finding passions. Speaking of passions, what is space is all about curiosity. It's about accepting that there is so much we don't know, and not to be afraid, but to be excited, and to look out into the stars every night and know that even what we see is already in the past. That, in fact, we will only ever, despite our greatest achievements, reach so far. And that's just the physics of it. And that's reality. And what is, we don't know what's in a black hole. We don't know, you know, what at a certain level, what causes what. We just
yeah,
get to look out and ask questions.
but
And even
but
within our
space,
own solar
yeah,
system,
and
go, go, go.
space gives us that cool, unanswerable question, like Star Trek. Boldly go where no one has gone before. Like that line radicalized me as a child. Like I was like, yep, you fucking got me. Like I'm gonna go like boldly go where no one has gone before. Hell yeah, let's do it. It's manifest destiny without the hate and without the like religious connotation to it. Because Star Trek is a political show about space. It just happens to be in space. But like I do all of the things that like have got me to where I am today. Like I watched the oh shit, what was the show? There were a bunch of space miners and it had like 5 or 6 seasons. Shit, it's based off of a book series. Um Somebody probably knows what I'm Expanse. Yes, thank you, Jonathan.
There you go.
Expanse. Like that whole series was so fun because you got to actually like it's also why I like Battlestar Galactica is you get to see it and it's the physics behind it and you see the ships move and you're like and the Expanse was my favorite because they would have the close up of the ship and then they would zoom all the way out and you're like, holy shit, that ship is tiny in this black expanse of nothing and it's beautiful. To me, it's beautiful because there's so much we don't know, and I
If
want
you
to I
haven't
want to know
seen
it.
those Yeah, if you haven't seen the JWST space deep space imaging pictures, like it's astonishing. I mean,
Hmm.
we anything you see on this planet, in my opinion, nothing scales to the beauty of, a giant nebula, with all of these stars and like, yeah, John, like we're smaller than a grain of sand. We're so insignificant, but that's what makes us wonderful is that we're lucky to be part of the great cosmic play that is what it is. And if we're lucky enough and we have enough, intelligence that if we chose, and I always say this, if we chose to unite, it would be through our curiosity.
Yep.
Curiosity could unite the world. If instead of us looking inward, we decided to look outward and to explore, ever since I was 14, I'm sure you know about this, but the Europa Clipper, okay? I have been following this project since its inception. And the idea is simple. There's a moon of Jupiter. It's basically a giant ball of ice. Okay, but Jupiter is so big that as this thing orbits Jupiter, it stretches the planet, right? So it kind of makes it oblong and then it comes back together. And Europa is the first place that we discovered that actually emits water. So it has these massive geysers, these plumes of water that come out because what this squeezing motion does twofold. It creates water, a subterranean ocean, I'm going to say, because it's really just a big ball of
Hmm.
ice. But there's
Yep.
a deep ocean and it's heated, which means there's
Which
some
could have
form
life.
of geothermic activity. And we know that life was created actually possibly, and there's abundance of ways that life is created, but it was created at these thermal vents.
Hmm.
And the more we look, and there's examples on Earth where we have life that exists completely separate of photosynthesis. It's chemosynthesis, so it doesn't even need light to exist. So we're already wrong about mostly everything 90% of the time once we actually keep looking. But what I love about Europa is they realize that this would be our best chance to discover life outside of off Earth. So
Hmm.
they designed this mission and it's been launched. They launched it in 2024. I'm so glad they did because I feel like they would have canceled it.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's in space. I'm so stoked that it's out there. Um, and it's going there and it's going to fly through these plumes and it's going to use these instruments um, to effectively test whether or not there's biological material in these plumes that are being emitted. And I firmly believe there's a really good chance it's there. And it's it would blow up everything. It
Yeah.
upends everything that we believe in terms of life on Earth and its uniqueness. And
And I
it's
think
just
that's
so
good. We need to.
fascinating. Yeah,
We need to have that. Like my thing is like I look up at space and I'm like, if we're alone, what a waste. Like what a waste of space if we're the only things in existence. Like there's got to be something else like us because the chance, like statistically speaking, the probability of us being alone is cannot hit zero. Like you can't be alone because accidentally it would have happened again somewhere else at some
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Like we're not alone. We can't be, and I love the idea. I love that we're finally getting to the point in science where we're not thinking just about life as us. Like we're seeing life and we're going, ooh, is there microbial life? Are there
Right.
bacteria? Are there the like, yep, it's Fermi paradox. It's also like the Armada book. And I'm glad you brought up Europa because they used Europa as an example in Armada, where the species put a giant swastika on the top of on the surface of Europa and was like, what's Earth gonna do about it? And eventually, I won't ruin the book, but like if you haven't read Armada, it's really good. You would love it. And
Jovian
well,
Nazis over there.
uh-huh. And but they did it as a test. They tested what
Yeah.
our response would be. And it's that idea is once we hit the singularity point, when AI has to wrapping back into the discussion of AI, because AI is a huge sci-fi tech thing. I mean, if you don't know, the Alexa devices were based off the computers from Star Trek. That was what Bezos wanted them to be. It was a cool idea, and I love that idea. Um, but like AI is going to make that point, and if we pass, our test of being worthy of
Our great
like
filter.
basically birthing a new species, because that's what we
Yeah.
would be doing. Is if we create AI that's truly artificial, we're birthing a new species and we're playing parent to another sentient life form. When that happens, I have a pretty good feeling we're going to notice there's a whole lot more things out there than we saw before, because that's
It's all the
just what it
problems
is.
that we struggle to solve, but we
Hmm.
can conceptualize the question. If you can present the question to something like that, it will solve it, right? Light
Yep,
speed travel. It's got to be possible because
it's
physics.
possible.
If light can move that fast, somehow we can too. It's
There are
just a
things that go
matter of
faster,
understanding, right?
like
Yeah, and like
those that we've found things that go fast that move independently of what we would consider physically possible by light. Like,
yeah,
okay, so moving, like we already know that going back in time is possible. It literally happens when you leave Earth's orbit. If you're in the ISS, you're technically going back in space, or back in time. Like you're not traveling at the same speed of Earth, so you're not inhibiting the same rotation as we are, and your lifespan is slightly now different because you have traveled back in time slightly.
like the movie Interstellar, right? Like I love
Mhm.
that example of when they go down to the ocean planet and they're there and they find that the person had literally just died. And then they're like, oh shit, we gotta go. And they get back up there and it's been like, what, 40 years or something? The
Mhm.
guy's been chilling in orbit and they're like, what the hell? Like, but that's real, right?
And they
That's the effect of
miscalculated.
gravity on time.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah, and
there is a
that's
fourth dimension. It does
mhm.
exist. We just time is like this, right? We just move. We can only move forward, but
It's
it's like a
gravity too.
string. It's a string. You could hypothetically go backwards.
Yeah,
It's just that we don't know how to, but we can ask the question, which
yeah,
begs, which means that we can find the answer.
yes.
So that's what's great about space and
Yeah,
all of
and
these things and
because
physics.
space is philosophy right now for us. And I love that
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
gets us to ask these questions. But like I said, it's not the time to sit back and just ask. It's time to act on the asking. So let's ask some good questions and keep acting on them,
Yeah.
because that's what we're doing. Like we have to have this discussion now, and more people have to have it, because the more we have it, that brings pressure. That is the sustained movement. Like people are complaining and talking about, oh, what happened to protests after the No Kings rally? And they're getting smaller and smaller at times, but they're not. They're not. We're getting larger and larger online because people are talking and speaking out and doing the things and acting, and not doing it coordinated in a protest, but doing it in a sustained movement of engagement. That's what we need. We just need to be engaged. We just need to keep being engaged and get more engaged. It's going to take effort. It's going to take time. It's going to be uncomfortable. But you get to ask some cool questions while you do it. Like you get to
Yeah.
reevaluate some of your own opinions, and you get to make sure that what you think is right. And we get to help
It's about
influence all of it.
it's about our fatal human flaw, right? It's about discomfort. It's about a lot of people are unwilling to be wrong because it opens up a whole can of worms, right? And that's where, we have to challenge ourselves. And,
Hmm.
once you're okay with that, it becomes exciting. So at the end of all of this, I think our next step is to be curious and to unite around that. And once we reach that, once we take care of each other and we don't have to focus on beating everyone else to live a semi comfortable life, suddenly we can all be curious again. And that's why we need to push for this so that
Yep.
we can begin to ask questions and not try and step on each other to have some form of comfort. Because that's what people pursue now is this desperate pursuit of comfort when what we should all be pursuing is curiosity and unity. And we'll get there by having
Yep.
discussions like this and by asking these questions. And I think that I think I'm done. Is there anything you would
Yeah.
like to
No,
add?
no, I think
Okay.
I'm done too. I think this has been great, Shane. I know we kept longer,
I
but I'm glad we got to talk a little bit about space. This was a fun way to end it too.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's but that's I think the goal, right? Is to not end on
Hmm.
the negative note. So all of you, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being firebrands. Thank you for being philosophers, because if you're here, you're asking questions, and I know you're going to go out and keep burning bright. Nick, I will see you next Monday. And it's always a pleasure. And I look forward to many more conversations to come.
Always a pleasure to Shane. See you on Monday. Thanks, y'all. It has
All
been
right.
great
Take it,
to
buddy.
talk. Thanks, everyone.